Admiral Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the Terran flagship Defiance and watched the stars. Her coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but she didn't notice. The emergency lights cast red shadows across her face as she stared at the main screen. Something big was coming. "Ma'am, long-range sensors are picking up a massive energy signature," Lieutenant Torres called from his station. "It's huge, bigger than anything we've ever seen." Chun walked over to look at the readings. The numbers made her stomach drop. Whatever was heading toward Earth was the size of a small city. She had been fighting aliens for 12 years, ever. Since humanity first left their solar system and found out they were not alone. She had seen Imperial cruisers that could destroy entire moons. She had watched their destroyers turn asteroid fields into dust. But this was different. "How long until it reaches us?" she asked. 6 hours, ma'am, maybe less. 6 hours to prepare for what might be humanity's last battle. Chun touched the communication panel on her chair. "All ships, this is Admiral Chun. Code Red, I repeat, Code Red, all vessels return to defensive positions around Earth immediately." Across the solar system, human ships changed course. Mining vessels fled from the asteroid belt. Transport ships carrying colonists from Mars burned their engines to reach the safety of Earth's orbital defenses. Military ships formed up in battle formation, their weapons powered and ready. Chun had 47 ships under her command. Most were small destroyers and frigates. She had 3 heavy cruisers and 1 battleship. Against a normal enemy, it would be enough. Against whatever was coming, she wasn't sure they would last 10 minutes. "Ma'am, we're getting a transmission," the communications officer announced. "It's from the approaching vessel." "Put it on screen?" The image that appeared made everyone on the bridge stop breathing. The alien was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 arms. Its eyes were completely black, and when it spoke, its voice was like grinding metal. "I am Captain Veltar of the Imperial ship Inexorable. You will surrender your world immediately. Lower your shields and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in the complete destruction of your species." Chung had dealt with the Empire before. They were brutal and efficient. They conquered worlds like humans collected stamps. But they had never sent a ship this large to deal with humanity. Earth was barely worth their attention. "This is Admiral Chun of the Terran Defense Fleet," she replied. "We reject your demands. Earth is under our protection." The alien's mouth opened in what might have been a smile. "Admiral Chun, we have heard of you. The human who destroyed our base at Kepler Station. The one who rescued the colonists from Titan's fall. You have caused the Empire much trouble." "Not as much as I planned to," Chun said. The alien made a sound. That could have been laughter. "You have 47 ships, Admiral. I have 1. Do you really think you can win?" "I think we'll find out." The transmission ended. Chun turned to face her crew. Every person on the bridge was looking at her, waiting for orders. She could see the fear in their eyes, but also determination. These people had chosen to serve in the defense fleet. They knew this day might come. "All right, people. This is what we trained for. Lieutenant Torres, I want you to scan that ship. Find me anything that looks like a weakness. Commander Parks, coordinate with our other ships. I want attack pattern Delta. 7. Lieutenant Yamamoto, charge all weapons and prepare quantum torpedoes." The quantum torpedoes were humanity's newest weapon. They had only been tested a few times, and the results were mixed. But they were the most powerful weapons Earth had ever built. If anything could hurt an Imperial dreadnought, it would be those. The Inexorable appeared on their visual screens 30 minutes later. It was massive beyond imagination. 1 kilometer long and bristling with weapon ports. Its hull was dark metal that seemed to absorb light. Energy shields shimmered around it like heat waves. Chun had seen Imperial ships before, but nothing like this. "Sensor reading coming in," Torres reported. "That ship has enough firepower to destroy every ship in our fleet 10 times over. Its shields are reading at maximum strength. And ma'am, it's not alone." "What do you mean?" "There are smaller ships launching from its hull, fighters, maybe 100 of them." Chun closed her eyes for a moment. She thought about her daughter Lisa, who was 19 and studying to be a doctor. She thought about her husband David, who was probably watching the news right now and worrying. She thought about the 8 billion people on Earth who were counting on her to keep them safe. All ships, this is Admiral Chun. The enemy is launching fighters. Prepare for engagement. Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves, we're fighting for every human being in the galaxy. Make every shot count. The battle began badly. The Imperial fighters were fast and heavily armed. They tore through the human formation like sharks through a school of fish. The destroyer Courage exploded in the first 30 seconds. The cruiser Liberty lost half its hull to enemy fire, but the humans fought back with everything they had. Captain Rodriguez of the Vengeance rammed his ship into a group of enemy fighters, taking out 12 of them. The crew of the Determination kept firing even after their ship was vented to space. Chun watched the tactical display and tried to find a way to win. The Inexorable was too strong for a direct attack. Its shields deflected everything they threw at it, but the quantum torpedoes hadn't been fired yet. Commander Parks, I need you to coordinate a simultaneous attack. Every ship fires at the exact same point on their hull, right where their shield generators are strongest. Ma'am, that will leave our ships exposed. We'll lose most of the fleet. We're going to lose most of the fleet anyway. At least this way. We might take them with us. Parks nodded and began sending orders to the other ships. Chun watched as her fleet formed up for one final attack. 23 ships left out of 47. 23 ships against the most powerful vessel in the Imperial Navy. Quantum torpedoes ready, ma'am, Yamamoto reported. All ships, this is Admiral Chung. Target the shield generators amidships. Fire everything you have on my mark. She paused and looked around the bridge one more time. It's been an honor serving with all of you. Fire. The space around the Inexorable lit up like a new star. Every weapon in the human fleet fired at once. Lasers and missiles and particle beams all focused on one small section of the enemy ship. The quantum torpedoes hit a split second later. For a moment, nothing happened. The Imperial ship's shields held. Chun felt her heart sink. Then the shields flickered and failed. Direct hit, Torres shouted. Their shields are down. All ships, concentrate fire on the hull breach. Chun ordered. The human fleet poured everything they had into the gap in the enemy's defenses. The Inexorable tried to turn, tried to bring its weapons to bear, but it was too late. Secondary explosions rippled along its hull as system after system failed. The great ship listed to one side, then began to break apart. Its reactor went critical, and the explosion lit up half the solar system. When the light faded, the Inexorable was gone. The Imperial fighters, cut off from their mothership, surrendered or fled. Chun slumped in her chair and looked at what was left of her fleet, 13 ships. Out of 47, only 13 had survived, but they had won. Somehow, impossibly, they had won, ma'am, Torres said quietly. We're getting messages from all over human space. They know what happened here. They're calling us heroes? Heroes? Chun didn't feel like a hero? She felt tired and sad and confused. The Empire had never sent a ship that large to fight humanity before. Why now? Why risk their most powerful vessel against such a small enemy? Set course for Earth, she ordered, and send a message to Fleet Command. Tell them we need to prepare for retaliation. The Empire won't let this go unanswered. But even as she said it, something bothered her. The way Captain Veltar had spoken. The way he had smiled when she refused to surrender. It was almost like he had expected them to fight. Like he had wanted them to win. Chun shook her head. She was overthinking things. They had won a great victory against impossible odds. Earth was safe. For now, that was enough. As the Defiance headed home, Admiral Chun didn't notice the small probe that detached from the wreckage of the Inexorable. She didn't see it send a brief transmission toward the edge of the galaxy before it. Self-destructed. In the deep darkness between the stars, something vast and ancient received that signal and began to move. 3 weeks after the battle, Earth was still celebrating. Every street corner had flags and banners. Every news channel showed the same footage over and over again. The moment when the mighty Imperial ship Inexorable exploded into a million pieces. The moment when humanity proved they could fight the strongest empire in the galaxy and win. Admiral Chun stood at the window of her new office on Luna Station and watched the celebration parades on Earth below. The planet looked like a festival of lights. Cities that never slept now blazed even brighter. She should have felt proud. Instead, she felt worried. "Admiral, the President is here to see you," her aide announced. President Martinez walked into the office with a smile as wide as the Pacific Ocean. Behind him came a group of reporters and camera crews. Chun sighed. She had been doing interviews for 3 weeks straight. "Admiral Chun, the hero of Earth," the President announced for the cameras. "Tell us how it feels to be the most famous person in human space." Chun looked at the cameras and tried to smile. "I was just doing my job, sir. Any officer in the fleet would have done the same thing." "Nonsense! You saved 8 billion lives. You proved that human courage and skill can beat any enemy. The quantum torpedo program is being expanded thanks to your success. We're building 100 new ships based on the technology we recovered from the Inexorable." The cameras kept rolling as the President talked about humanity's bright future. Chun nodded and said the right words, but her mind was elsewhere. Something about the battle didn't make sense. The Empire had ships that could destroy entire star systems. Why send just one ship to fight Earth? And why did Captain Veltar seem so calm when his ship was dying? After the reporters left, Shun walked down to the detention level. The surviving crew members of the Inexorable were being held there. Most of them had been badly injured in the battle. The Imperial medical technology was keeping them alive, but barely. Chun found Dr. Sarah Martinez in the medical wing. She was not related to the President. Despite sharing the same last name, Dr. Martinez was a xenopsychologist who specialized in alien behavior and thinking patterns. She had been studying the prisoners for weeks. "Any progress?" Chun asked. Dr. Martinez looked up from her tablet. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes. "That's the strange thing, Admiral. There has been progress, but not the kind you'd expect." "What do you mean? Come with me. I want to show you something." They walked to the main holding area. Through the transparent walls, Chen could see the alien prisoners. They were tall and thin with gray skin, just like their captain had been. But something was different about them. They looked peaceful. "When we first brought them here, they were angry," Dr. Martinez explained. "They refused to eat. They wouldn't talk to us. They tried to escape twice. Standard behavior for prisoners of war. And now? Now they're almost helpful. They answer questions about their technology. They eat the food we give them." Yesterday, one of them actually thanked a guard for bringing him water. Chun frowned. "Maybe they're planning something? That's what I thought at first. But I've been monitoring their brain patterns with Imperial medical scanners we recovered from their ship. They're not stressed. They're not angry. If anything, they seem relieved. Relieved about what? That's what I've been trying to figure out." Dr. Martinez led Chen to a smaller room where Captain Veltar was being held separately. The alien captain was sitting on his bed, staring at the wall. When he saw Chun, he stood up and actually bowed. "Admiral Chun, the human who destroyed my ship." "Captain Veltar?" Chun studied the alien's face. "You don't seem upset about losing." The captain was quiet for a long moment. "May I ask you a question, Admiral?" "Go ahead." "In your military history, have you ever heard of a strategic loss?" Chun thought about it. "You mean losing a battle on purpose to win a bigger war?" "Something like that, yes." "Why are you asking?" The captain sat back down and looked at his hands. "No reason. I'm just curious about human military thinking." Shun left the detention area more confused than when she arrived. Dr. Martinez walked with her to the elevator. "There's something else," the doctor said. "We've been analyzing the data from their ship's computers. Most of it is encrypted, but we did find something interesting." "What?" "Star charts. Maps of the galaxy that go much further than we've ever explored. And Admiral ... There are markers on those maps, danger zones, areas marked with symbols that translate to something like forbidden or death. The elevator doors opened and they stepped inside. Chun pressed the button for the command level. Have you told anyone else about this? Not yet. I wanted to talk to you first. The elevator reached the command level and they walked toward Chun's office. The hallways were full of officers and technicians, all working on projects related to the captured Imperial technology. Everyone looked excited and optimistic. Humanity was stronger than ever before. Dr. Martinez, I want you to keep studying those star charts and keep monitoring the prisoners. Something about all this doesn't feel right. But Ching's concerns were drowned out by the celebration. The next day, the president announced that Admiral Chun would receive the highest military honor in human history. The ceremony would be broadcast across all of human space. The day of the ceremony, Chun stood on a platform in front of the Parliament building on Earth. Millions of people filled the streets. Millions more watched on screens across dozens of worlds. The president placed a medal around her neck while crowds cheered. Today we honor not just Admiral Chun, but the courage of all humanity, the president announced. We have shown the galaxy that Earth will not bow to any empire. We are strong. We are brave. We are ready for whatever comes next. The crowd roared its approval. Chin smiled and waved, but she couldn't shake the feeling that they were celebrating. Too early. After the ceremony, Chun returned to Luna Station. She found Dr. Martinez waiting for her with a worried expression. Admiral, we've made a breakthrough with the alien computers. We decrypted more of their files. What did you find? Messages. Communications between the Inexorable and Imperial High Command. Admiral, I think you need to read these. They went to Dr. Martinez's lab. The doctor pulled up a translation on her computer screen. Chun read it twice before the words sank in. The message was from Imperial High Command to Captain Veltar. It was dated 3 days before the battle. It read, "Proceed to human homeworld as planned. Remember, your sacrifice will determine if this species can serve the greater purpose. The old shields and weapons have been installed as requested. May your death serve the Empire." Chun stared at the screen. Their ship was deliberately weakened? That's not all. Dr. Martinez pulled up another message. This one was from Captain Veltar to his crew, sent just hours before the battle. My loyal officers, we go to our deaths willingly. If the humans can destroy us with their primitive weapons, then they have the warrior spirit we need. If they cannot, then they will be destroyed and the problem will be solved. Either way, the Empire benefits. Chun felt cold. They wanted us to win. It gets worse. Dr. Martinez showed her one more file. This is a partial transmission that was sent from their ship just before it exploded. Most of it is corrupted, but I was able to recover fragments. It says something about tests completed successfully and recommend immediate contact with human leadership. Chun walked to the window and looked out at Earth. The celebration was still going on. People were dancing in the streets, convinced that humanity had won a great victory. But it had all been a lie, a test. Dr. Martinez, I want you to keep this information classified for now. Don't tell anyone else what we've discovered. Admiral, shouldn't we inform the president? Not yet. First, I want to know why the Empire needed to test us. What are they preparing for? Chun spent the next few days reading every piece of Imperial data they had recovered. Most of it was still encrypted, but she found clues, references to something called the Harvest, mentions of an enemy from the Dark Between, and over again the phrase, "The Guardians must not fail." On the 4th day after the ceremony, Chen was in her office when alarms started blaring throughout the station. She ran to the command center where officers were shouting reports. Admiral, we're getting distress signals from the Outer Rim colonies. What kind of distress signals? Mayday calls from 3 different star systems. They're saying entire planets are disappearing. Chun felt her blood turn to ice. Disappearing how? We don't know. The signals just cut off. No explosions, no battle damage. The planets are just ... Chun looked at the star chart on the main screen. The three systems that had gone silent were all in the same region. The same region that was marked as a danger zone on the Imperial maps. Get me a communication link to Captain Veltar. Now. 5 minutes later, Chang was standing in front of the alien captain's cell. His black eyes looked sad and tired. Captain, I know about the test. I know your ship was sent to lose. Veltar nodded slowly. I wondered when you would figure it out. What's happening to our colonies? What's the harvest? The captain stood up and walked to the transparent wall between them. Admiral Chen, your species has just passed the most important test in the galaxy, but I am afraid your real war is only beginning. Outside? The celebration continued, but Qing knew that humanity's greatest. Far beyond the edge of the galaxy, in the cold darkness between star systems, something massive moved through the empty space. It had been sleeping for 10,000 years, drifting in the void where no light could reach. But the destruction of the Imperial ship, inexorable, had sent ripples through space that only the most ancient creatures could feel. The Devourer. Queen opened eyes that were older than human civilization. Each eye was the size of a building, glowing with dark energy that made space itself bend and twist. Her body stretched for hundreds of kilometers through the darkness. She was not alone. Around her, 1,000 smaller Devourers began to wake up. Each one was the size of a moon, covered in tentacles and feeding tubes that could drain the life from entire worlds. They had been waiting in the space between galaxies for this moment. The moment when the Guardians would finally fall. The Queen sent out a signal that traveled faster than light. Across the universe, her children heard the call. The harvest could begin. On Earth, Admiral Chun stood in the secure briefing room deep beneath Luna Station. President Martinez sat across from her, along with the heads of Earth's military and intelligence services. Between them, Captain Veltar sat in chains, his forearms bound behind his back. Explain it again, the president said. His face was pale and his hands shook slightly. Slowly, Veltar looked tired. His gray skin was even paler than usual, and his black eyes seemed to hold the weight of the galaxy. The Empire has been lying to you about who we are. We are not conquerors, we are guardians. Guardians of what? Admiral Chun asked. Of this galaxy, of all life within it. For 10,000 years, we have held the borders against an enemy that seeks to consume everything. General Morrison, the head of Earth's ground forces, slammed his hand on the table. That's impossible. We've seen your ships destroy entire civilizations. We've seen you enslave whole species. Yes, Veltar said quietly. Because we had to. Every species in this galaxy serves a purpose. Some are workers, some are soldiers, some are builders. We take what we need to maintain our defenses. Dr. Martinez, who had been quietly taking notes, looked up. What kind of enemy requires the entire galaxy to fight it? Veltar was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. They call themselves the Devourers. They come from the space between galaxies. They do not want territory or resources. They want to consume everything that exists. When they finish with a galaxy, nothing remains. No stars. No planets, no life, just empty space. Admiral Chun felt a chill run down her spine. How do you fight something like that? With everything you have. Every ship, every weapon, every life. And even then, it is barely enough. The president leaned forward. If this is true, why didn't you just tell us? Why the deception? Why the test? Because knowing about the Devourers changes a species. Some try to run. Some give up and wait to die. Some go insane from the knowledge. We needed to know what humans would do when faced with impossible odds. Would you fight or would you surrender? And now you know, Chun said. Yes, your species destroyed our most powerful ship using inferior technology and smaller numbers. You did it through courage and cleverness. These are the qualities we need. Admiral Chun walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, planets were disappearing. Entire star systems were going silent. How long do we have? The advanced scouts have already reached the outer rim of the galaxy. Based on their movement patterns, the main fleet will arrive in 6 months. 6 months. Chun did the math in her head. Even if humanity built ships as fast as possible, even if every nation on Earth worked together, they could maybe produce a few hundred vessels. Against an enemy that could consume galaxies? How many ships does the Empire have? She asked. 50,000 combat vessels. 2 million support ships. The combined fleets of 300 species. General Morrison laughed, but there was no humor in it. And you think adding our few dozen ships will make a difference? Not your ships, Veltar said. Your ideas. Humans think differently than any species we have encountered. You find solutions where others see only problems. The quantum torpedoes that destroyed the inexorable were based on theoretical research that Imperial scientists called impossible, Doctor. Martinez looked up from her notes. You're saying you want us to help you develop new weapons? More than that. We want you to help us find a way to win. For 10,000 years we have fought the Devourers to a stalemate. We stop them from advancing, but we cannot push them back. Every cycle they return stronger. Every cycle we lose more worlds. The room fell silent. Jen could hear the hum of the station's life support systems and the distant sound of celebrations still going on in the populated areas. People who had no idea that their greatest victory might have doomed them all. Show us, Chun said finally. What? Show us the enemy. Show us what we're really fighting. Veltar nodded to Dr. Martinez, who activated a holographic projector in the center of the room. The alien captain spoke a few words in his own language, and the projector displayed a star map of the galaxy. These red dots represent star systems that have been consumed in the last 1,000 years. Veltar explained. The map showed a pattern of red spreading inward from the outer edge of the galaxy like a disease. Hundreds of systems. Thousands of worlds all gone. Each red dot represents billions of lives, Veltar continued. The Devourers do not kill quickly. They consume slowly, draining the life force from everything they touch. A planet that is harvested becomes a dead rock floating in space, but they do not stop there. They consume the very energy of the stars themselves. Admiral Chun stared at the map. How do they do it? We do not fully understand their technology. They seem to feed on the fundamental forces that hold matter together. When they finish with a solar system, even the space itself becomes ... wrong. Ships that enter consumed areas simply disappear. President Martinez stood up and began pacing. This is impossible. How has the galaxy kept this secret? How has no one else discovered this threat? Because the Empire controls all information that travels between star systems. Any species that learns about the Devourers either joins our cause or is eliminated. We cannot risk panic spreading through the galaxy. But you're risking it now. By telling us, Dr. Martinez observed. Because we are desperate. The Devourers have broken through our outer defenses. For the first time in 10,000 years, they have advanced past the barrier worlds. If we cannot stop them in the next few cycles, they will reach the core systems. Once they consume the galactic center, there will be no stopping them. Chun turned away from the holographic display. The red dots seemed to burn into her memory. What do you need from us? An alliance. Your ships fighting alongside ours. Your scientists working with ours. Your military commanders sharing tactical knowledge with ours. And in return, we will share our technology, our weapons, our knowledge of the enemy. Together we might find a way to not just hold them back, but to push them out of this galaxy entirely. General Morrison shook his head. The people will never accept it. After centuries of fighting the Empire, you want us to become allies? The alternative is extinction, Veltar said simply. Admiral Chun looked around the room at the faces of Earth's leadership. She could see the struggle in their eyes. Everything they had believed about the galaxy was wrong. Their greatest enemy was offering to become their greatest ally. Their most celebrated victory was actually the beginning of their most desperate hour. We'll need proof, she said finally. Something to show our people that this threat is real. Veltar nodded. The Devourer scouts are moving toward the Centauri system. If you send a ship there, you will see for yourself what we are facing. How long before they reach Centauri? 3 days. Chun felt her stomach drop. Centauri was humanity's first colony outside the solar system. 500,000 people live there. Can we evacuate them? There is not enough time. But perhaps your ship can learn something useful before the system falls. The president sat back down heavily. Admiral Chun, prepare a reconnaissance mission to Centauri. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with. Sir, if this is true, shouldn't we start evacuating other colonies? One step at a time. First, we verify the threat, then we decide how to respond. As the meeting broke up, Admiral Chun found herself walking beside Dr. Martinez toward the detention area. Doctor, what do you think? Is he telling the truth? Dr. Martinez was quiet for a moment. His stress indicators suggest he believes everything he's telling us. But Admiral, there's something else. I've been monitoring Imperial communications since we captured their ship. There's been a lot of chatter in the last few days. Ships moving to defensive positions. Fleets being recalled from distant sectors. What does that mean? It means the Empire is preparing for war. Real war, not the small conflicts we've seen before. They're mobilizing everything they have. Admiral Chun looked out at the stars again. In 3 days, they would know if Captain Veltar was telling the truth. In 3 days, they might watch an entire star system die. And if the alien was right about the timeline, in 6 months the real enemy would arrive at Earth's doorstep. The celebration was still going on in the outer sections of the station. People were still cheering about humanity's great victory over the Empire. But Admiral Chun, Captain Maria Santos, had been to the Centauri system dozens of times. She knew every asteroid, every moon, every shipping lane around the twin stars. The colony of New Geneva sat on the third planet, a green world with blue oceans and white clouds. It looked almost exactly like Earth. Now she stood on the bridge of the scout ship Horizon and watched that world die. Captain, are you getting this? Lieutenant Kim asked from the sensor station. His voice was shaking. I'm seeing it, but I don't believe it, Santos replied. The thing attacking New Geneva was impossible to describe. It looked like a living mountain that moved through space without any engines. Its surface was covered in tentacles that reached out toward the planet like grasping fingers. Where the tentacles touched the atmosphere, the air itself seemed to wither and turn gray. Captain, we're getting distress signals from the surface, the communications officer reported. Put them through. The voice that came through the speakers was full of terror. This is Governor Williams in New Geneva City. Something is draining our atmosphere. People are collapsing in the streets. The plants are dying. Everything is turning to dust. We need immediate evacuation. Please, someone help us. Santos watched in horror as the green continents of New Geneva slowly turned brown, then gray, then black. The oceans began to shrink. The clouds disappeared. In less than an hour, a world that had been home to 500,000 people became a dead rock floating in space. Captain, there's something else, Lieutenant Kim said. I'm detecting more objects in the outer system, big ones. The tactical display showed 3 more creatures moving through the Centauri system. Each one was different, but they all had the same horrible purpose. One wrapped itself around the smaller star and began draining its light. Another consumed the asteroid belt, turning solid rock into empty space. The third headed toward the gas giant where humanity had several mining stations. We need to get out of here, Santos said. Record everything and prepare for immediate jump to hyperspace. Captain, what about the mining stations? There are 3,000 people on Europa station alone. Santos closed her eyes. She could see the dots on her tactical display that represented those stations. 3,000 people who were about to die, and there was nothing she could do to save them. We can't help them. Our mission is to gather intelligence and report. Back if we stay, we die too? The Horizon jumped to hyperspace just as the third creature reached Europa Station. The last thing Santos saw was the station's lights going out one by one. 3 days later, Santos stood in the same briefing room where Admiral Chun had first learned about the Devourers. The holographic display showed her ship's recordings of the Centauri system. Everyone in the room watched in stunned silence as an entire star system was consumed in a matter of hours. The planet had 500,000 people, President Martinez said quietly. All dead. Not dead, Captain Veltar corrected. Consumed. Their life energy has been absorbed into the Devourer fleet. In a way, they still exist, but not as anything we would recognize as human, Admiral Chun studied the recordings. How many of these creatures are there? The advanced scouts number in the hundreds. The main fleet has thousands. And behind them comes the Devourer Queen herself. Dr. Martinez looked up from her notes. Captain Santos, did you notice anything that might be useful? Any weaknesses? Santos shook her head. Our weapons had no effect. We fired a full spread of quantum torpedoes at the creature attacking New Geneva. They passed right through it like it wasn't even there. Because it exists partially outside normal space, Veltar explained. Devourer biology operates on principles that our science barely understands. They can phase in and out of physical reality at will. General Morrison stood up and began pacing. So how do you fight them? How has the Empire held them back for 10,000 years? With great sacrifice and specialized weapons. Technology that takes centuries to develop and can only be produced in the deepest parts of Imperial space. Admiral Chun turned to face the alien captain. Show us? Veltar spoke to Dr. Martinez, who activated another holographic display. This one showed a massive space station orbiting a red giant star. The station was enormous, easily the size of Earth's moon. This is Fortress Prime, one of 12 battle stations positioned along the galactic rim. Each station is equipped with quantum disruptor cannons that can damage Devourer biology. But the stations can only fire once every 6 hours, and each shot requires the entire energy output of a star. The display changed to show the battle stations in action. Beams of pure energy lanced out across space, striking the Devourer creatures and causing them to writhe in apparent pain. But for every creature destroyed, 10 more appeared to take its place. 12 stations holding back thousands of enemies. President Martinez said, "How long can that last?" "Not long. 3 stations have already fallen. Fortress 7 was overrun 2 months ago. Fortress 3 fell last week. If we lose 2 more stations, the Devourers will have a clear path to the inner galaxy." Admiral Chun studied the tactical situation. "What do you need from us? Help us build more stations. Help us develop better weapons. Help us find a way to strike at the source of their power." "The source?" "The Devourer Queen. She coordinates the entire fleet through some form of telepathic link. If we could destroy her, the rest might become confused and vulnerable." Dr. Martinez looked intrigued. "Has anyone ever gotten close to her?" "No, she travels in the center of the main fleet, protected by thousands of her children. No force in the galaxy has ever been large enough to fight through to her." Captain Santos had been quiet during most of the briefing, but now she spoke. "Up, Captain Veltar, I noticed something during the attack on Centauri. The creatures seemed to communicate with each other without any visible signals. But there were patterns in their movements, mathematical patterns." "What kind of patterns?" "I don't know. I'm not a scientist." "But Lieutenant Kim recorded everything. Maybe Dr. Martinez could take a look." Dr. Martinez nodded eagerly. "I'd like to analyze all the sensor data from your mission. Maybe we can learn something about how they coordinate their attacks." As the meeting continued, Admiral Chun found herself thinking about the impossible task ahead of them. The Empire wanted humanity to help fight an enemy that consumed galaxies, an enemy that had been held back for 10,000 years but was now breaking through, an enemy that turned living worlds into dead rocks in a matter of hours. "There's something I don't understand," she said. "If the Devourers are so powerful, how did the Empire stop them in the first place? How do you hold back something that can consume stars?" Veltar was quiet for a long moment. "We did not stop them. We merely slowed them down. Every few thousand years they advance further into the galaxy. Every time we fall back to new defensive positions. This cycle we cannot fall back any further." "Why?" Not? Because behind us are the core worlds. 10 trillion lives, the heart of galactic civilization. If the Devourers reach the core, everything ends. The weight of those words settled over the room like a heavy blanket. 10 trillion lives. More people than humanity could even imagine. All depending on stopping an enemy that seemed unstoppable. President Martinez stood up. Admiral Chun, I want you to work with Captain Veltar to develop a joint defense plan, Dr. Martinez. Analyze everything we know about Devourer behavior. General Morrison, begin mobilizing our forces for possible evacuation of outer colonies. Sir, Admiral Chun said. What about the people? How do we tell them that everything they've been celebrating is actually the beginning of the end? We don't, not yet. If this information becomes public before we have a plan, it will cause panic across human space. We need time to prepare. As the meeting broke up, Admiral Chun walked with Captain Veltar toward the detention area. The alien captain would be returning to his cell, but Chin suspected that wouldn't last much longer. If they were going to work together, they needed to trust each other. Captain, she said, there's something I need to know. If the situation is so desperate, why didn't the Empire contact us sooner? Why wait until now? Veltar stopped walking and looked at her with his dark eyes. Because we hoped we would not need you. For 10,000 years, we have borne this burden alone. We have sacrificed entire species to maintain the defenses. We have become monsters to prevent something worse from happening. And now? Now we are running out of monsters? The Devourers are stronger this cycle than ever before. Our traditional methods are failing. We need new ideas, new approaches. We need species that can think in ways we never could. And you think humans can provide that? Your destruction of the inexorable proved that humans can find solutions where others see only defeat. But Admiral, you must understand something. If we fail, if the Devourers break through, humanity will face a choice. What choice? Join us in evacuation to another galaxy, abandoning this one to the enemy, or stay and fight a war that cannot be won. Admiral Chen felt a chill run down her spine. You're talking about abandoning the entire Milky Way galaxy. If necessary. Yes, we have contingency plans to evacuate the most essential populations to the Andromeda galaxy. But such an evacuation would take centuries and could only save a tiny fraction of the life in this galaxy. They had reached the detention area. As Veltar prepared to return to his cell, Admiral. 2 months after the fall of Centauri, the galaxy watched in horror as 3 more star systems simply vanished from all sensor readings. Not destroyed, not conquered, but erased as if they had never existed at all. The Devourer fleet was accelerating its advance, and the remaining Imperial fortress stations were falling one by one. Admiral Chun stood in the command center of the joint human-Imperial fleet staging area. Around her, officers from dozens of different species worked together for the first time in galactic history. Humans sat beside tall, gray-skinned Imperials. Insect-like Kithara shared data with Crystalline Vardic. The galaxy's greatest enemies had become desperate allies. Captain Veltar, no longer a prisoner but now serving as Imperial liaison, approached Chun with a grim expression. Admiral, we have received word from Fortress Prime. They estimate 18 hours before the Devourer main fleet reaches their position. How many ships do we have ready? 2,000 human vessels, 15,000 Imperial ships, and another 8,000 from allied species. It is the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. Admiral Chun looked at the tactical display, showing their combined forces. 25,000 ships seemed like an enormous number, but she knew it wouldn't be enough. The Devourers had consumed 6 star systems in the past month. Each system had made them stronger. What about the new weapons? The quantum disruptor torpedoes are ready. Your human engineers combined our disruptor technology with your quantum torpedo design. The result should be far more effective than either weapon alone. Dr. Martinez approached with a tablet full of data. Over the past 2 months, she had become the galaxy's leading expert on Devourer behavior. Admiral, I've been analyzing the patterns Captain Santos recorded at Centauri. I think I've found something important. What is it? The Devourers don't just communicate with each other, they're connected, like a single organism with multiple bodies. But that connection has limitations. Veltar looked interested. What kind of limitations? Range. The creatures can only stay connected if they're within a certain distance of each other. When they spread out to attack multiple targets, they become vulnerable. Admiral Chun studied the data on Dr. Martinez's tablet. How vulnerable? If we could force them to spread their forces thin enough, we might be able to cut the connection between the Queen and her children. Without her coordination, they might become confused and easier to defeat. How do we force them to spread? Out, Dr. Martinez smiled. It was the first time Chun had seen her smile in weeks. We give them too many targets to ignore. The plan that emerged from the next 12 hours of planning was the most desperate gamble in galactic history. The combined fleet would split into 20 separate battle groups. Each group would attack a different part of the Devourer formation simultaneously, forcing the enemy to spread out across a vast area of space while the main fleet kept the Devourers busy. A small strike force would attempt to reach the Queen herself. The strike force would consist of 50 of the fastest ships in the galaxy, equipped with the most powerful quantum disruptor weapons ever built. Admiral Chun would lead the strike force personally. Admiral, this is suicide, General Morrison said during the final briefing. Even if you reach the Queen, how do you expect to destroy something that can consume stars? We don't destroy her, Chun replied. We wound her. Dr. Martinez's analysis suggests that if we can disrupt the Queen's connection to her children for just a few minutes, the entire Devourer fleet might collapse. President Martinez, who had arrived from Earth that morning, looked worried. And if you're wrong? Then we evacuate to Andromeda and hope the next galaxy over is far enough away. The battle began at the edge of the galaxy, where the last Imperial Fortress station was making its final stand. Fortress Prime had been humanity's first sight of Imperial super technology. Now it was a burning wreck, its massive guns silent, its shields failing. The Devourer main fleet surrounded the station like a swarm of cosmic locusts. There were thousands of them, ranging in size from moon-sized scouts to continent-sized destroyers. And in the center, protected by a wall of her children, was the Queen herself. She was beyond description. Larger than most planets, her body stretched across space like a living nightmare. Tentacles the size of mountain ranges writhed around her massive form. Energy crackled between her limbs as she fed on the dying fortress station. All ships, this is Admiral Chun, she broadcast to the combined fleet. Remember, we're not trying to win this battle. We're trying to survive long enough to give the strike force a chance. Hold the line as long as you can, then fall back to the secondary positions. The 20 battle groups attack simultaneously from different directions. Human quantum torpedoes mixed with Imperial disruptor beams and alien energy weapons. The space around the Devourer fleet lit up like a fireworks display. The plan worked better than anyone had hoped. Confused by the multiple attacks, the Devourers began to spread out to meet each threat. The Queen's children broke formation, rushing to defend different parts of their fleet. Strike force, we have our opening, Chun announced. All ships, follow me in. 50 of the fastest ships in the galaxy dove toward the center of the Devourer formation. They moved like a spear point, dodging between the massive alien creatures. Racing toward their target, Chun watched her tactical display as ships began to disappear. The quick strike vanished when a Devourer tentacle touched its hull. The Imperial cruiser honor guard simply stopped existing when it flew too close to one of the larger creatures. Admiral, we're losing too many ships, Captain Santos reported. From the horizon, we need to get closer faster. All ships, maximum burn, everything you've got. The remaining ships of the strike force pushed their engines beyond safe limits. They streaked through space like meteors, weaving between Devourer creatures that tried to intercept them. Chun could see the Queen ahead of them, a mountain of flesh and energy that hurt to look at directly. She was beautiful in a terrible way, like a storm made of living darkness. Weapons range in 30 seconds, the tactical officer reported. All ships, Target the Queen's central mass. Fire everything on my mark. The strike force opened fire when they were still 1,000 kilometers from their target. Quantum disruptor torpedoes streaked through space, each one containing enough energy to destroy a city. Behind them came particle beams and fusion, missiles and every other weapon the galaxy could produce. The weapons struck the Queen and she screamed. The sound had no voice, but every living being in the battle felt it in their minds. It was the sound of something ancient and terrible being hurt for the first time in millions of years. Across the battlefield, devourer creatures stopped moving. The connection between them and their queen flickered and wavered. "It's working," Dr. Martinez shouted from the Defiance. "The neural link is disrupting," but the queen was not defeated. She turned her massive form toward the strike force, and Chun could see intelligence in her planet-sized eyes. Ancient hungry. Intelligence that had consumed 1,000 galaxies. "Admiral, she's preparing to fire." The sensor operator warned. Energy began to build around the Queen's form. Space itself seemed to bend and twist as she gathered power for an attack that would destroy every ship in the strike force. "All ships emergency scatter." Chun ordered. The strike force broke formation, ships diving in every direction to avoid the coming blast. But Chun knew it wouldn't be enough. The Queen's attack would destroy them all. That's when Captain Veltar did something no one expected. The Imperial captain took his ship, the captured Inexorable that had been rebuilt with the latest human and Imperial technology, and flew directly at the Queen. His ship was small compared to the massive creature, but it was fast and heavily armed. "Captain Veltar, what are you doing?" Chun demanded over the communication channel. "What my people should have done 10,000 years ago," Veltar replied. "Ending this war." The rebuilt Inexorable struck the Queen just as she was about to fire. The ship's quantum disruptor warhead, designed to be the most powerful weapon ever built, detonated in direct contact with the creature's central nervous system. The explosion tore through the Queen's massive form. She writhed in space. Her scream now one of agony rather than anger. The neural connection to her children shattered completely across the battlefield. Thousands of devourer creatures suddenly stopped moving. Without the Queen's coordination, they began to drift aimlessly through space. Some collided with each other, others simply floated motionless, as if they had forgotten what they were supposed to be doing. "All ships, target the confused devourers," Admiral Chun ordered. "Press the attack." The combined galactic fleet fell upon the disorganized enemy like a pack of wolves. Without their Queen's guidance, the devourers were still dangerous, but no longer unstoppable. Ship after ship was destroyed by concentrated fire from the Allied forces. The battle raged for 6 more hours, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. When the last devourer creature was destroyed, the galaxy fell silent. Admiral Chun stood on the bridge of the Defiance and looked out at the wreckage. Thousands of ships from both sides floated dead in space. The Queen's massive corpse drifted slowly past, her tentacles now limp and lifeless. "Admiral," Dr. Martinez said quietly, "long-range sensors are detecting the